Welcome back to the Ready State. So check this out. One of the things that we see sometimes as we've become more sophisticated as a community is that our rationale for what's going on sometimes gets in the weeds. So when we have very simple stiffness problems or we're having simple myofascial pain problems, it's easy to come up with a plethora of very sophisticated answers. And what we always want to do is say, have we taken care of the basics? So, for example, one of the things that happens when you train is that your body has an adaptation response to that stimulus, right? This is what the game is, right? Exercise actually makes me weaker. My body views it as a stress. I have a reaction to that stress. My tissues become more robust. My discs become more robust. My ligaments tense, et cetera, et cetera. I see second and third wave adaptations happen in the tissues. But one of the things that happens is that stiffness, and I'm talking about muscular stiffness, is just an artifact of some of the training volumes and some of the training loads. Now, it's not an accident that there's a lot of accessory motions and accessory movements that look like bodybuilding movements, and sometimes we've said, hey, those accessory movements are about more strength, but sometimes they're about just getting in more motion, restoring blood flow, getting a good pump, getting the garbage out, groceries in. The loads that our athletes are under are real. The volumes are real. And those, again, sometimes what ends up happening because those volumes and some of those things are so real, the body ends up getting stiff. So this is a long way of saying, if your feet are hurting or you've got an Achilles problem, let's look upstream at the system. Now, when we talk about this in our language, we say look upstream and look downstream. And that's just a mnemonic to remind you that the system is complicated, the system is complex, and the system is connected. So if you're having pain in the bottom of your foot and your Achilles, it may be something going on with your foot or your footwear, or change in volume, or something about the existential threat you're feeling under, or your poor nutrition, or your warm up and cool down, or the fact that you sprained your ankle back in numb. All those things are valuable, but it also just may mean that your calves are stiff. And oftentimes, when we're getting to the bottom of these problems, we find that people have skipped over some of the obvious things. So my calves don't hurt, ergo, they must not be a problem. So what we know is that common myofascial problems are easily addressed. Why? Because if I actually go after them, they improve the system. So how do I know if this is you? So for example, because we've been talking with a lot of people about pain in their Achilles, pain in their feet recently. Why? Because suddenly we're asking to have, some of us are barefoot for the first time in our lives throughout the whole day. Or we've been doing more running, we've been more doing calisthenics, and our calves are getting stiff. How do I know? Because if I load up the calf, especially here I'm in this long lever position, I should be able to roll side to side on something that looks like a kettlebell, something, this is the pull-up bar from the rig, and it shouldn't hurt to compression. So if I put a little pressure on it and I'm like, oh, I found a problem. For us, it doesn't mean you're injured. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with the tissues. It's a normal expression of the adaptation to exercise. Your tissues get stronger, and then you build more musculature inside that stronger tissue. But that can also lead to stiffness, intramuscular stiffness. You know, an imperfect relationship between fascia and muscles, between muscles and its neighbor. It doesn't matter what the rationale is. But what we find is that when we actually get to the bottom, again, of some of these stiffness ideals, here I have a lacrosse ball on my roller, and this allows me to have much higher pressures in the calf, in the gastroc. So you're like, hey, my Achilles works, I worked upstream of it, and I'm rolled back and forth, and it doesn't hurt. Well, until you've looked at the entire calf system and really appreciate that your calves go all the way up here, you have not cleared, you have not checked the box, you have not gone looking. And what we often find is that when we apply a little bit more pressure, when we're a little bit more curious about the basics, what we find is that people have missed it. So if you're suffering from foot problems or Achilles problems these days, why? Because you're barefoot, you're standing on your flat kitchen, you're not moving as much, you don't have as much variety, you're running more, whatever the reason is, don't forget the simple things. And in this situation, the simple thing can be really exquisite stiffness in your stems. Shouldn't hurt to compression. also shouldn't feel like beef jerky. If you jump on there, can't take a full breath, feels like you're rolling through beef jerky, or it hurts the compression and you can't have some child come over and sit on your calf, you have found what we believe to be a part of the problem. And finally, I'll just say that it's still part of the problem until you've proven that it's not. And so we may never get ahead of complete calf stiffness. Why? Because you're still going to go run, you're still going to go deadlift, you're still going to go train. But if you improve that system, oftentimes the symptoms get improved in the process. So we never have to ever move towards 100%. That is improbable, unlikely. But improving the system globally is enough, even change how the brain is perceiving that. And from a simple blood flow, myofascial restriction, mechanical tension, whatever it is, improving the system may change your downstream symptoms. So don't forget the basics.